Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Pregame Show, brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing offers every day. We just lost Bernie off the table. Couldn't stay standing. Rudo and Jesse coming at you live before Avs Hawks Part 2, this time in Chicago. Obviously the big news of the day, Nathan MacKinnon out through the All-Star break with a facial fracture that required surgery, and as well as a concussion.
Yep.
So,
yeah, we talked about it on the breakdown when I was making that earlier with Allie. The facial fracture, that's something that as soon as MacKinnon feels good enough to go, he can go.
Yep.
Full bubble, full cage.
Yep.
It's the concussion that's really the only thing that'll put this in question. I think the 3-game timeline for the facial fracture
probably
sounds about right.
Yep.
The concussion, we'll kind of see.
Silver lining, he gets a week off instead of going to the All-Star game.
Yeah, well, they're saying that his All-Star status is still unconfirmed. I can't imagine Nate's in much of a hurry to get on that plane and go to Vegas. Yeah, I would say at absolute most, he'll go out there and do what he did a couple of years ago and be coach or whatever the hell. I can't see him taking part in anything.
Sit there and tell Bednar to do his job again.
Yeah, oh, that's right. I forgot Bednar was behind the bench. Yes, he actually, you know what? He should do that. Now I hope that's what he does.
That would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Avs taking on Chicago again. Chicago's lineup more or less the same as it was less than a week ago. For the Avs, obviously, with MacKinnon out, you're going to see significant changes, and then Pavel Francouz getting the start tonight. We'll talk about him in just a little bit. Are expectations the same for the Avs against Chicago, Jesse? Should they beat this team even without MacKinnon?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't ignoring. I was making sure I was getting the link out.
Dude, I constantly on my phone on these things. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, no, I think the expectations are the same. Look, I mean, we've seen them prove it several times this year, even as recently as the last game against Boston, where Nathan MacKinnon went out, 2.5 minutes into the game?
Yep.
This
Not
team
even.
Right, yeah. This team is deep enough, this team is skilled enough, and when they are playing within the structure and the system that their coaching staff coaches to, they don't they don't need Nathan MacKinnon to win, to win in games like this. You need Nathan MacKinnon to get you to where you're wanting to go, but tonight, going to Chicago, they play the Avs tough. Marc-Andre Fleury is always going to play a good game against the Avs. But at the end of the day, this is still a team, even with the roster as constructed as it is tonight, this should be a game that the Avs should be expecting to win. Should be expected to win. I
would agree. I mean, when you look at the lineups on paper, yes, Chicago has the high end in Kane and Taves, sure. But even without MacKinnon, the Avs match that with Rantanen and Landeskog.
Right.
And honestly, they feel like fairly similar caliber of players at this point. Kane's still a great player, but he's not the MVP level player that he used to be.
And I'd put Landy and Mikko pretty clearly ahead of Jonathan Toews.
Toews, I think you're right. Probably a tier below.
Yeah, he might even be the second best Toews in this game.
I think by a good margin, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then, you've got DeBrincat, but that's where, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but they're moving Nichushkin up to that top line.
Yep.
And if you're Chicago, you've got matchups tonight. Are you matching top line to top line? Because I don't know how many pucks Kane and DeBrincat are digging out against Mikko, Gabe,
I mean, you look at those bodies and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So it's gonna be interesting, and to the point that you're making, I still think that if you're going down and just even saying, okay, cool, you can match Taves, Kane, and DeBrincat to that top line, even if you give them that benefit, I mean, you're still looking at Kadri, Newhook, Burakovsky, Makar, Taves, Girard.
It's impressive that the Avs can lose MacKinnon for 3 games, and Avs Nation just kind of goes, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God.
Right. I remember a few years ago, I think it was during was it the run when they eventually lost to Nashville when Nate went down near the end of the year? And AJ essentially wrote an obituary for the Avs season, and it all felt totally appropriate because it was like, oh man, Nate's out. What a fun season this has been. They've stayed in it, but that driving force, and obviously they end up going on to. This pass was ridiculous.
Yeah.
They obviously end up going on to make it, but you're totally right in that this year just you don't have that feel. It's oh man, Nate goes down. That really sucks. Nate's really good. Well, who's going to play in his spot?
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Part of that answer is the super chat we have here from Pin King. Thank you for the $2. Cale Makar getting the A on his sweater tonight. Well deserved. Obviously, Makar's nuts.
Yeah. Dude, that says a lot, honestly. I mean, I tend not to look too much into that stuff.
For sure.
But when you see stuff like this, and honestly one that stood out to me a few years ago was Tyson Barrie wore a letter. Yep. I think it was last season, Sam Girard got a letter for a game. Those are just interesting things because it tells you just a little bit about who those emerging voices are in the room. And it also is a little telling that EJ has kind of been the de facto
fallback
fourth letter this season. And after last game, he gets benched. Jared Bednar openly talks about, hey, that was a message being sent. And now you see Nathan MacKinnon's out. It's not Eric Johnson. It's Cale Makar. That is one of the few that, again, you don't put too much stock into it, but it does just kind of jump out to you just a little.
Look, Makar is already great. I don't think there's any doubt there, but there's a little bit of you're still kind of waiting for the handing over the keys for this defense, right? And in the very near future, I think there's a real good chance Makar's wearing an A every night.
I agree.
So,
I mean, it's almost even one of those things where you say, wow, I think everyone has come so far on Landeskog as a captain. He even admitted in an interview over the summer, I was probably handed that responsibility a little too early. Yeah. So, I really do. I think Gabe Landeskog's a great captain, and I think he's a good captain in this league and for this team. But, I mean, if you didn't have someone so solidified like that, I really do think that you're staring down Cale Makar. Again, if you don't have Gabe Landeskog being who he is, I think you're even staring down Cale Makar taking the C in just a few years.
Agreed.
So the fact that he's getting a letter tonight, I think you're right, does just kind of allude to, hey, once this kid's a little bit more established and the keys are actually in his hand, I think he's absolutely part of that leadership core. And it says something that a young kid like that can have a voice in this type of locker room, the type of respect he carries from the team.
Okay, apparently Jonathan Toews has a concussion, so sucks to be him.
Well, there you go. Already, even what we said is already like, now you take Jonathan Toews out of that mix, and it's
just more leaning towards the Avs going, this is a team they should beat.
Right.
Getting into the actual lines, we kind of already mentioned it. It's going to be Mikko centering line one. Not a big surprise. We saw Bednar go with this earlier in the season quite a bit, so reasonable.
Yeah, no, honestly, that one, like you said, I think not that big of a surprise. The biggest surprise is that wing on the second line for me.
Alex Newhook getting promoted to the top six. Obviously, Nichushkin getting promoted to the top line as a wing, so they had an open spot to fill there. But it is interesting that they're moving Newhook to the wing here to put him up and give him a shot.
Yeah. The second line early in the season was kind of Bednar's safety blanket. He really liked the way that line was gelling. And it's kind of been the third line recently. We've seen a lot of movement, but kind of those staples of that.
You've seen a LOC Newhook.
Yep. And then
third guy's a little bit fluxy,
but he's really liked keeping LOC and Newhook together.
Yep.
So for him to split that up, I'm really anxious to see what Newhook's doing. I think this is something that he's earned.
Definitely.
Just watching him over the last few games, I mean, this whole season, but the last few games in particular, you can just see it starting to click, a little bit more and a little bit more. I mean, I was watching, he's starting to carve out his own little Ovi spot.
Yeah,
on the
working
ice.
that bumper spot there. Yeah.
And dude, if you watch him, when that puck swings out high before it even comes down to the wall to be bumped in, he's loading up. Like he's ready. He's recognizing that, hey, this puck's coming to me. I have to be ready. I have less time.
He does such a good job in that exact spot. He reads the defender in the center of the ice, and he just cuts in front of him and just takes away everything. So the pass coming to the middle is going to him and no one else.
Right.
It's such a good read every single time by him there.
And he's got such I'm not ready to put him in the Burakovsky tier.
Not quite
but,
yet.
But
yeah.
he's got the tools and the skill set to put him, to be in that conversation in a couple of years of having that type of shot.
For sure.
So, we joke a lot on this show because sometimes they use that bumper in like a 3-foot gap, and it's like
the pass is literally from you to me.
Yeah. It's like you're not changing the angles there. But Newhook's got a good enough shot and a good enough release from there.
Just doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need to be changing that much space, just purely having someone that's loaded and ready. So he's going to be the one that I'm watching tonight, playing with Kadri and Burakovsky. That's a lot of hard work, and that's a lot of skill on the second line.
Yeah, I agree. On a team that's any less talented from the Avs, I think you'd have already seen Newhook on the second line, so certainly well-deserved from him. You'd love to see him show well here. And
yeah,
you don't want to talk too much about the future because you're focused on this season,
right.
But there's going to be an expectation next year
For
of
sure.
Newhook being a second-line player.
Yeah,
so.
100%. I mean, I definitely lead that charge of take care of business now, but you also have to deal in reality knowing that, okay, let's even just play a super fun game and say they do bring Nazem Kadri back. But
sure.
Right.
Sure.
But that would almost assuredly mean that you're losing the other two, and you're going to need someone to fill in that top six regardless. I think no matter of any of those pending UFAs, Nichushkin, Burakovsky, Kadri, he's taking one of those guys' spots next year. At least that's what it sure looks like the Avs are grooming him for.
Yeah.
And so I think you want him. Ideally, if you're winning a cup this year, he's like your stud 3C. He's like your secret weapon in the bottom six. But these next few games, I think, should be a good little audition for can you handle that little bit tougher matchup? Couple more minutes.
Test the ceiling here a little bit.
Yeah, and just kind of use it as a good measuring stick for where he's at. And then not to completely breeze over that top line. I think that's a really fun mix. Usually we've seen Burakovsky go in there. You have three huge bodies. That line, the Landeskog, Rantanen, and Nichushkin line is going to be an absolute bear to handle below the dots. I don't know. I think that's kind of a fun little combination.
Not a line I would ever want to play against.
Hell no.
For sure.
Fuck that.
Two conversations to this. One, you need to see Mikko step his game up.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Yes, he's producing. That's great. It's time for him to play like Nathan MacKinnon has been playing in these last couple games. He needs to be the engine driving that line now. Two, I'm shocked that I'm here, chat, but I'm perfectly happy with Val Nichushkin on the top line of the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, I mean, he's earned it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You go all the way back to when they signed him as kind of like that year's version of Nail Yakupov.
Yep.
Reclamation. Let's see if we can get anything out of him. And he's overachieved in his role every step of the way.
Yep.
And I mean, seriously, this year, through 41 games, obviously there's a lot of season left to be played, but through 41 games, I dare anyone to tell me he hasn't looked like a top 10 NHL pick.
He's been straight up legit.
Like, he's been exactly what Dallas thought they were getting when they took him 10th overall. He hunts so well on the forecheck. He hounds, opposing forwards coming to the neutral zone.
He's insanely good at puck tracking.
Right.
It's wild.
Tracking is the fucking word I couldn't think of. I don't know why that wasn't coming to me, but he tracks so well. He's making plays. I mean, he draws that penalty the other night because he's kind of like old Eric Johnson, right? Where just once he gets up to speed, it's like you step in front of him. No, you step in front of him.
I'm not getting on those tracks.
Right. And he drives a net, he draws penalties, and he's finishing this year.
Yep.
It took him 90-something games to break through when he got, by the time he scored one for the first time in Colorado, and now he's a legitimate threat every time he's around the net.
Over 20-goal pace now.
Yeah, and back to your Mikko thing, I agree. The fun thing about Mikko is he can play poorly, and he's so good that he produces anyways.
It's still good.
But, we've seen him have so many of those games. He's even had games this season where he does just take over and dominate with that combination of size, real sneaky speed, in his hands. He has the ability to play at a Nathan MacKinnon level.
Yeah.
And you're right, for these next three games, Now, he doesn't need to be Nathan MacKinnon, but
No,
you'd
of
like
course
to
not.
see him be in that range.
You want him to
these
be the
next three
guy.
games, right.
Yeah.
And take over.
He's going to get it done a different way, but you know he has that in his bag to be someone that the other team is afraid of.
Yeah.
All right. To wrap up the bottom six really quickly. The third line is the new iteration, the return of the frat line a little bit. You get Comfer and Jost, and now O'Connor, the DU boy, joining them on that line.
It's a hard-working combination.
Yeah. I don't think you're expecting a ton out of that line.
No,
but
what's crazy is I actually think again, this is just another one of those like weird we're out of the season. I think you're expecting LOC to drive that offense.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of where you're at right now.
Like any of the offense that's going to come out of that line is probably being led by LOC getting that line in good position.
Yep.
I like that group for Jost. I think it's one of those things where AJ's pointed out several times this year. Jost isn't having a down year. This is pretty on par with what we've seen from him. He goes through hot streaks. To me, this is the best combination Jost is probably going to skate with this season.
I think the thing with Jost especially is, all right, you look at the good version of JT Compher when you get it, he's a good finisher.
Yep.
You look at LOC when he's having a good night, he's finishing pucks.
Yep.
Jost needs help finishing.
Yeah.
That's where it's at in the NHL for him. That's just reality.
Yep.
So you put him with two guys like that, two guys that can help keep up, can get into it a little bit physically, at least not afraid of doing so, and that takes a little bit of that load off of Jost and frees him up.
Yeah,
so.
you've got a line of three guys who, like you said, LOC and Compher, when they're at their most effective, they're putting pucks in the net. When Jost is at his most effective, he's digging pucks out and he's creating for others.
Yep.
LOC and Compher, when they're not finishing, they're still effective in the same way that Jost is when he's on. So you've got three guys who are digging pucks out, getting to good position. If there's ever going to be a game where Jost is going to find himself with pucks landing on his stick in scoring position, it's tonight.
Yeah.
When he's away from Maltsev and Helm. And
realistically,
McDermott.
For defenders, he's option 3 on that line instead of option 1.
Yeah. Where it's him and then a couple dudes.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, go get him, Jost.
Right. So, I mean, I guess Abe Kubel's had a good season. I don't want to shit on him too hard.
True.
But in a he's just a much different player than O'Connor and Compher. So, interesting group there as well.
Extremely generous super chat here.
Wow,
thank you for the
so
$25, Andrew. Got loaded at the brewery for the Boston game and bought a flight to watch the game tonight. All I hear are great decisions.
Yeah,
at this
I was going to say.
So
it's just
well
leave
done.
that up to the rest. That's a Hall of Fame super chat right there.
Yeah, no kidding. Put that one enshrined. We'll get the plaque going.
Yeah, put it in the Louvre right next to the 3 Boston fans on the glass.
Yes, perfect.
We'll just hang this one right underneath. Got so amped watching this that I had to buy a flight. I love that.
The whole work of art for this.
Yeah.
The Avalanche 2022 season.
Yeah, give it its own wing.
All right, let's move on to the other big conversation for tonight's game. Pavel Francouz, he's coming off of back-to-back shutouts, one of them against Chicago.
Yep.
Going into the United Center. Historically, it's a building Avs goalies have played pretty darn well in.
So this is Varley's church. He visits the United Center every Sunday.
No kidding. Where are we at in this conversation
Look,
right
dude,
now?
I wrote about it yesterday in our roundtable. Head over to the DNVR.com. If you haven't read it, it's kind of our half-season poll.
Yep.
Look, no one's talking about it. No one's going to talk about it for a while. You gave up a first and Connor Timmins to bring Darcy Kemper in here. He's shown he was having a Vezina caliber season the 1 year in Arizona when he got hurt.
Yep.
The Avs saw it firsthand in the playoffs. Darcy Kemper has the ability to be an elite goaltender in this league. Pavel Francouz, 2 years ago, before the COVID pause in 2020, played 34 games and was sitting at a .923 save percentage. I stand firm that right now, had there not been the COVID pause, Jared Bednar would have been faced with a very difficult decision of, do I start the goaltender that has performed best all year, or do I start Philip Grubauer? That would have literally been the conversation that he had to have.
Yep.
Pavel Francouz started more games. He had more wins. He had a better save percentage, lower goals against, and I think that was the one year he had a shutout, and I don't think Grubauer had one.
Seems good, Jesse.
Right. So seems not bad, right? You forget about all that stuff because he signed a 2-year contract and then didn't play for a year and a half.
Ghost.
Yeah. So, no one's talking about it yet, and I think rightfully so. I think Kemper's still the number one, but
For sure.
Francouz came back and he had a bad period in the AHL. And since then, he's been lights out.
Yeah. Rock solid.
And back-to-back shutouts. We'll see how he plays tonight. But, if you start stringing together too many more of these types of games, at the very least, it's going to make you kind of double clutch.
It's got to be a conversation, right?
Yeah. Also, obviously, a lot of that depends on how Kemper plays. And, again, what I put yesterday in that piece is, at the very worst, you're going to end up pushing Darcy Kemper because, look, this isn't Jonas Johansson. This isn't Hunter Miska.
Yep.
This isn't Justus Annunen anymore where you're saying, no, I'm the clear number one. They're just trying to survive. You've got someone who wants that net. Yeah. Pavel Francouz is in a contract year himself as well. He's going to be looking for jobs around the NHL. You know that I think Joe Sakic is going to be very motivated to bring him back. Talked a couple weeks ago on the show that, I don't know, maybe you're sitting there saying, do we lock this guy up and say, worst case, he's our starter next year?
I think that's the beauty of where Francouz sits right now. You're saying, at worst, there's a good chance this guy is a 1B.
Right,
right. At worst.
At worst, yeah. And so I don't know. Maybe are the Avs looking at this saying, do we try to get a contract done with him, and that way we've at least got one that we know.
Not going empty-handed.
Empty-handed, because if this level of play keeps up for Francouz, if we see him get back to those types of numbers that we saw from 2020, the Edmontons of the world, the Buffaloes of the world, the Ottawa, Seattle, how funny would that be? Arizona, they'll throw money at him. Hey, come be our starter.
And I'm pretty sure Edmonton reserves like $4 million to throw at a goalie every year.
They set aside 4.5 to 5 for any goalie who's never been a true number one. That's Edmonton's got that budgeted in. But really, man, all jokes aside, I'm not ready to put it there yet. I think Kemper's still your number one.
I agree.
But I think you're right. I think with every passing game where Francouz is playing at the level he has been, he's entering that not a backup, I'm a 1B conversation. Yep. And that's all great for the Avs. Everything I just said is great for the Avs, regardless of how you spin it. And you got to be feeling good right now in net, whether it's Francouz or Kemper.
Agreed. It's hard to feel bad about it. Let's get to our bets really quick. Do we have some Blaze phone-ins tonight? Or all right, it's all right. I know what Blaze's bets would have been anyway. Cale Makar over half a point. Devon Taves over half a point.
Yep, nailed
Go
it.
get your free money there. Yeah, there you go. Makar over half a power play point.
I did take Nuke as a first goal scorer tonight.
That not a bad bet tonight.
He was at plus 1,500 when I got him. I'm not sure where he's at right now. Yeah, plus Landy.
Here, all right. Here's where the good money is, chat. Alex Newhook power play point.
Yep.
Right there. I don't know if he'll be on PP1. Not sure, but you're going to see a little bit more opportunity on the power play tonight with MacKinnon out. Some guys are going to get some chances.
This is also a rare game where I took the under. The line's at 6. It's not 5.5.
Yeah.
And Frankie's playing well.
3-2 classic right here.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking like 2-1, 3-1 with an empty netter, and so the score looks a little bit worse than it is, 4-1 or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, so I took the under. I took Nuke. And then I'm going to go in and take everything you just said Blaze would take because he's just printing money.
No kidding. That dude, he's like a genius at finding those bets where it's like, oh, DraftKings just hasn't realized that this is a free bet.
Well, it was the shots on goal one there for a while when they had Mikko and Makar every night at 2.5.
And it was just free money,
literally.
It's
I don't even think it was ever in question once. There was the one game they had Nate at 2.5, and he had 9 shots halfway through the second period.
Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's they got Taves at 2.5 shots. I might take that one.
Don't hate it. especially on a night like this. You know they're going to lean on their defense for a little bit of offense.
Actually, I'm definitely taking that. That's Taves 2.5 at plus 110.
So you're getting good money.
Yeah,
there.
I'll say that's positive money there.
So bets, look, it's a free-for-all tonight with no MacKinnon. Get your money in. You know you're going to get some good plus bets on some guys with MacKinnon out.
Allie had Landy because of how angry he was playing last game. And the game where she hit Mikko, her thinking was, well, Mikko was real pissed last game, so
there's a science to it.
Yeah. So these are all very clear, scientific experiments.
It's a lock. I guarantee it, Chad.
Yeah, we've run hypotenuses and all kinds of stuff. So just take it directly to the bank. Just take your uncashed DraftKings bet slip.
Bet the whole account on it. It'll be fine.
Right to the bank. Yeah. Just do all of it.
All right. We're going to get out of here, Puck
Do we
Drop.
need to give like a be responsible disclaimer after that?
Please don't bet any important money. Be smart.
Except, no, I'm just kidding.
When it's a lock, no.
Yeah.
We're going to get out of here. Puck Drop less than 10 minutes away, so we'll be back after the game to talk whatever went down. Hope you'll join us for that right here on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe. We love you all. P.S. For y'all chat regulars, keep your eyes out. We're gonna be we got some emojis in the work for the YouTube chat.
And then one more PS. Head on down here tomorrow for the Goaties.
Yes, Goaties, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Have you ever wanted to get drunk with the DNVR crew?
Yep.
That's what the Goaties are going to be.
Literally
basically.
all it is.
Yeah.
My understanding. This is my first Goaties, and that's just how it's been explained to me.
That's pretty accurate description. So come hang out with us tomorrow evening. We hope to see you there. We will talk to you after the game.